Have you ever left a game feeling disappointed, frustrated, and as though your confidence has completely been destroyed? I get it. Bad games happen, right? They happen to every single athlete, no matter their level. And so by the end of this episode, you're going to have a clear strategy that you can use to bounce back from bad games and begin your next game with confidence. Hey there. I'm Eli Straw, a mental performance coach who works with athletes from around the world on building a stronger mental game. When you have a bad game, we have to make sure that we change your perspective after the game. We have to change the way you're looking at that game, and most importantly, how you're thinking going into the next game. And these 4 steps that I have for you will help. Step number 1 is you want to give yourself some time to feel disappointed. This might sound weird because the whole point of this episode is to get you to work through those feelings of disappointment. But we also have to understand that you train so much for your sport, you put so much time into it, that it is normal and natural to feel disappointed and frustrated after a bad game. So you want to give yourself some time. An example of this comes from a young athlete I worked with who was dealing with a lot of anger and frustration during games, but especially after games. After games, if it didn't go exactly the way she wanted it to, she would beat herself up and feel angry at herself for how she did. This did nothing but hurt her confidence going into the next game. In the beginning of our coaching, we talked about a better way to respond, so a better way to think after these bad games. And my approach always, in something that you'll learn toward the end of this episode, is that we want to have a better way of evaluating the game. We don't want to beat ourselves up. We don't want to look at it from an emotional standpoint. We want to try to be more objective. But for her, much like it is for a lot of athletes, it's difficult to take that objective view immediately after the game has finished. So what she and I discussed was giving herself some time after the game to feel the natural emotions that she's feeling, but then also to try to distance herself from the game. So that's really what I mean when I say to allow yourself some time to feel out and to accept and embrace the way that you're feeling. The way that you can really do this, and so what she did, is you want to give yourself a timeline or a deadline where you say, I'm going to give myself this amount of time to feel upset. It might be an hour or 2 after the game before you start taking these next steps, or it might be the next day, right? So you say, I'm going to give myself today to feel upset, but then tomorrow morning I'm going to work on moving past this. And not only do you want to give yourself time to feel those natural feelings of disappointment, but you also want to give yourself time to not even think about the game. What she found the most success with was taking her mind off the game completely. So I talked to her parents and we had a conversation about how after games, we don't want to immediately talk about the game. We want to give ourselves some space. We have to let those emotions happen. They're going to be normal. But most importantly, we don't want to hyperfixate on the game immediately. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to think about the game. Most importantly, we're going to learn from the game, but not right now. So they would go out to dinner. They would, watch a movie, talk about anything and everything besides the game. So that's the first step in this recovery process, is you want to accept that the feelings are normal and natural. Give yourself some time to feel those natural feelings of disappointment, and also give yourself some time before you begin thinking about the game by doing something that helps you take your mind off of the game. The next step is to analyze instead of criticize. After a bad game, the main reason that we see confidence go downhill is because of the criticism that we give ourselves. Now, the truth is, the criticism might be warranted. You might have played poorly, you made a bunch of mistakes, maybe maybe you're even the reason that your team lost. But we also have to look at this from a productive standpoint. And it's not productive to criticize yourself unless that motivates you to work harder. But I'm going to guess that if you're listening to this episode or watching and you're wanting to learn how to bounce back, that criticism is only hurting you. And you don't need any more motivation than you already have to turn things around. That's what you're desperate to do. So we want to analyze instead of criticize. Analyzing means we look back and we evaluate the game. We think through the game. And we do so with an eye focused on improving. And the way you can do this is by asking yourself or having somebody else ask you some questions. The first question that you always want to ask yourself after a bad game, and remember, this is something that you're doing after that time has expired, that you've given yourself to forget about the game, feel the natural emotions, and kind of move past that. But now it's time to evaluate. So the first question is, what did I do well during the game? Now that might seem like the most difficult question in the world to answer because you just performed poorly. You're upset, you're frustrated, so you probably aren't seeing anything good about the game. But no matter how bad the game was, there will be some positives for you to take from it. And you have to try to look at those. The reason you want to look at the positives first is because this will help you get into a better mindset to then evaluate the negatives. But also we know that over the course of a season or over the course of, weeks, months, and even years, the more we only focus on negatives, the more we will grow to fear having negative outcomes happen in the future. And when you fear negative outcomes happening, you will underperform due to timidness and playing scared. When you focus on the positives, this is where we see confidence begin to grow. Now, we're not being delusional here. We're not trying to say that the mistake was a positive. What I'm saying is you have to find positives in the bad game. These might include maybe talking to your teammates and picking them up. A positive might be that you responded a little bit better than you normally would have to some mistakes. Or a positive might be something small that you did that you overlooked because of those big mistakes that you made. But you first have to focus on the positives. The next question is, what can I learn from my mistakes? What are the lessons that can be gained from the bad game? Maybe you need to learn that you need to practice something a little bit more. Or maybe you need to learn that you have to take a different mindset to the game. But you want to work on identifying the lessons. When we can take lessons from bad games, no longer are bad games only a point of frustration, but they are an opportunity for us to improve. And I know that sounds corny and cheesy, but it's the truth. There's no way for you to bounce back from a bad game if you only see them as reasons why you're not good enough. But if you can learn from bad games, not only will that help reduce the frustration, but it will also help you improve in the future. And that brings me to the third question that you can ask yourself when you are analyzing the bad game. And it's, what's one thing I want to focus on going into my next practice or the next game to actually work on and apply what I learned? So this is where you say, I learned that I need to work on this, and then this is how I'm going to work on it during practice. Or I need to have a better mindset for the game, so going into this next game, this is how I'm going to have that better mindset. It's in this third question where we actually apply the lesson, and it's in the application of the lesson that we turn bad games into improvement opportunities. Now, these next two steps focus on going from that bad game into the next game, because we don't want to have one bad game snowball into a slump or a poor season because of our emotional reaction to the bad game. So the next step is that you want to figure out what you need to do to build your confidence for the next game. This might include using self-talk to reframe this negative thinking. It might include using visualization to help yourself see success instead of seeing failure. Or it might involve you applying what you learned to practice to regain confidence in your skills. But you want to make sure you have a plan in place that you will use to develop confidence and boost your confidence going into the next game. And step 4 is that for that next game, you need to set process goals. I was just having a conversation earlier this morning with somebody in my one-on-one coaching program, which if you are interested in learning more about my one-on-one coaching, I've put a link to it in the description below. And she and I were talking about developing confidence. And we were going through this conversation about what she trusts herself to do within her sport. And when she has been struggling, she tends to focus on the outcome more. And so going into the game, her goal is, I have to perform perfectly. I have to do well. But unfortunately, because she hasn't been performing well, she doesn't have a lot of confidence in that. But she does have a lot more confidence in the controllable process parts of her game. And it's those controllable process parts that will help her have a good performance. So we talked about setting the goal going into the game to be only to focus on those process parts. And the reason that we're able to do this is because going into a game or a competition or a performance, your goal is never to perform poorly. So we don't actually have to tell ourselves, my goal is to have a great game. Of course your goal is to have a great game. But what's the actual goal you need to focus on, or the thing you need to do in order to have a good game? That's what you have to be focusing on, and that's the type of goal you want to set. So process goals are targets or objectives that we set for games that are 100% within our control. And a great question to ask yourself to figure out what kind of process goals you need to set is, how do I achieve the result I want? What do I need to focus on that will help me get a good outcome? And focus on achieving those going into the next game. And if something is controllable, it means you can make sure you do it. And we will have a lot more confidence in ourselves going into another game after a bad game if we're finding these controllable targets to focus on. Because it's a lot easier to have confidence in myself to go out there and achieve a controllable objective than it is for me to have a quote-unquote good game, especially if I've been performing poorly recently. So in summary, to help you bounce back from a bad game and then have confidence going into your next game, the first step is to give yourself time to feel the feelings of disappointment because they're natural, and give yourself some time before you start to think about the game. The next step is to analyze instead of criticize. And then you want to have a way to help build your confidence, whether that's through self-talk, visualization, or just through your practice. And then going into your next game, make sure that you're setting these process controllable goals to give you something to focus on that you trust yourself to do rather than focusing on the outcome. Now, if you're interested in learning more about one-on-one coaching, like I said, I've put a link to that in the description below. And I also have 2 online courses available, the Confident Competitor Academy and also the Mentally Tough Kid course. Both of those are in the description below as well. And then I also have 2 books on Amazon for you. One is titled Mind Games, which is a collection of short stories, and the other one is titled Athlete Mental Training, and it's an athlete mental training guidebook for you that walks through different mental game challenges athletes face, mental skills and how to build them, and then the different mental training tools you can use as an athlete. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.